All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle one of the biggest questions out there. Are our lives already written for us, or do we get to write the story ourselves? We're going to dig into the idea of fate, but probably not in the way you're used to thinking about it. This was it. Wow. That line just hits you, doesn't it? It's so final. It perfectly captures that spooky feeling of inevitability. You know, the sense that something was always going to happen, no matter what. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we're moving past the whole God versus chance thing. Then, we'll get into the core idea: character is fate. After that, we'll zoom out to see how this works on a bigger scale, wrestle with free will, and finally, figure out why we're so obsessed with finding a story in all the chaos. Let's do it.
All right, first up, beyond God and chance. Before we can get to the really interesting stuff about fate, we've got to clear the table a little bit and get rid of the usual ideas we all have.
We usually get handed two options, right? On one hand, you've got this idea of a grand plan, maybe a caring God making sure everything works out. And on the other hand, just pure random chaos, a total cosmic lottery where nothing means anything. And for a lot of us, neither of those really feels right.
And just to be super clear, when we talk about fate, we are not talking about some angry God up in the clouds yanking on strings. And we're definitely not talking about what some call McFate, that kind of cheesy, oh, it was all meant to be vibe. No, we're looking for something with a bit more weight to it.
And things get even messier in the modern world because we've got all these conflicting ideas swirling around. Science tells us everything is cause and effect. That's determinism. But at the same time, we're told we have total control over our lives. Then you throw in some chaos theory, maybe a little quantum physics, a bit of lingering faith, and suddenly there's just no room left for an idea like fate. It's a total mess.
But what if there's another way to look at this, a third path? And believe it or not, it's a really old idea, an ancient solution to this very modern problem.
Character is fate. That's it, just 3 words from the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus. Think about that for a second. The idea isn't that your future is written up in the stars somewhere, it's written inside you. Your destiny, your fate, it grows directly out of who you are at your core.
So what does that actually mean? Well, think of it as a middle ground. It's not a rigid, scientific, clockwork universe where everything is predetermined, and it's not total random chaos either. It's something in between. It says our lives have a shape, a direction, and that shape comes from our character.
And honestly, this old idea feels super relevant when you think about something like a high school reunion. Haven't you noticed? It's kind of shocking how little people fundamentally change. That person who was voted most likely to succeed, they're probably running something. And the kid who was always getting into trouble, well, they might still be finding their way. It's like the blueprint of their character, their fate, in a way, was already there to see.
Okay, but this isn't just about individuals. This whole idea of character is fate, it scales up big time. It also works on a massive level, like these huge invisible forces guiding whole cultures and societies.
And once you start looking, you see it everywhere. Think about romance, right? That powerful idea that two people were just meant to be. Or in economics, Adam Smith's famous invisible hand that guides the market. Hegel called it the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, that kind of defines an entire era. These are all just different ways of talking about the same thing, huge forces with their own character that shape our collective destiny.
And that leads to a pretty humbling thought, doesn't it? We like to think we're the authors of our own story, starting with a completely blank page. But we're not. We're born into a time, a place, a culture. It's more like we grow into a story that's already been started for us, rather than creating it from nothing.
Okay, but here's the elephant in the room. If our character is our fate, and if there are these giant forces pushing us around, then what about free will? Do our choices actually matter at all? This is the big one.
This is where the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre comes in, with a really powerful idea. He basically said, look, you don't get to choose the hand you're dealt. You don't choose what you're made of. But, and this is the key part, you are always responsible for what you make of what you've been given.
So how does that work? How can both things be true at the same time? How can our lives have this fated direction from our character while our choices still mean everything? That's the real paradox we have to wrestle with.
Sartre had a name for copping out. He called it bad faith. It's that little lie we tell ourselves. Oh, I can't help it, that's just the way I am. If you say, I'm a coward, you're treating it like it's a fact, like your eye color. But Sartre says no, that's a choice. It's you choosing to ignore your own freedom. Your character isn't a prison, it's just the starting point. The freedom is in deciding where you go from there.
Which brings us to our last big idea here. Why do we even care so much about fate? Why are humans so drawn to this concept? Well, it all comes down to our deep, deep need to find a story, a narrative, in the middle of all the chaos.
Okay, let me ask you something. Imagine a fortune teller who's right 95% of the time. Would you ask them the exact day you're going to die? Most people, when asked, say no. Isn't that interesting? We want to believe there's a plan, but we don't actually want to read the last page of the book. We want to experience the story as it happens.
And that really gets at the heart of it. Fate is something we really only see when we look backward. It's a story we tell ourselves about the past. We connect all the dots of our life, and only then can we see what looks like a fated path. It's how we make it all make sense.
I mean, think about it. When something awful and random happens, what's the first thing we ask? Why me? That question, it reveals so much. It shows that deep down, we expect the universe to have reasons, to have a plot. The idea that something could just be random bad luck, we just can't stand it.
The author Kurt Vonnegut put it in this really haunting way. This idea that the big moments in our lives, they aren't just happening. They have always happened, and they always will happen. It's a strange, unsettling, but also kind of beautiful idea that gives our lives a real sense of wholeness.
And so, that's where we land, with this one last big question to chew on. Are we the authors of our lives, writing on a totally blank page? Or is the story already written in the ink of our own character, and our job is just to live it, to grow into the words on the page? Maybe, just maybe, the answer is we're both.